tonight. Weather trouble ahead. More than 100 million Americans are in the path of brutal winter storms. Dean Reynolds on a shortage of critical supplies. Mark Strassman meets the man who cancels flights. And we'll look at what's coming next. In a surprise, the government estimates that Obamacare will cause 2 million Americans to pass up full-time jobs. Cheryl Atkinson explains. Why is the new heroin epidemic suddenly so deadly? Vanita Nair investigates. And when a cultural revolution landed in America 50 years ago, no one was closer to the Beatles than the man Jim Axelrod meets tonight. I wanna hold your hand. This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Kelly. Good evening. We've passed the halfway mark in winter, but the storms just keep on coming. Have a look at the map. The latest storm that's been dumping as much as 10 inches of snow on the Midwest will be heading into the Northeast overnight, bringing all of the travel headaches that go with it. Another bigger storm may be just days behind it. This is a live picture of Lee's Summit, Missouri, outside Kansas City. The snow and the temperature there have been falling all day, more than 6 inches of snow so far. We have a series of reports on the severe weather. First, we'll go to Dean Reynolds in Chicago. Dean?
Scott, just 2 other winters have been this snowy in Chicago in the last 129 years, and across the Midwest, municipalities are finding it harder and harder to manage the mess. The snow was falling so fast in Missouri that road crews could not keep up. By the afternoon, the state was pleading with people to stay home. In Kansas, the governor declared a state of emergency. Along the storm's southern edge, ice caused spinouts or knocked down power lines. By the afternoon, 40,000 outages were reported in Arkansas. Highway officials in 12 states reported they needed more salt to fight off the snow and ice.
Where we are right now, we should have salt as high as that hill above us.
At least. John West is the director of Public Works in Maywood, Illinois. He ordered 2,000 tons of salt at the start of the season, and 2,000 tons are gone. Only 500 tons from a stopgap purchase remain and are doled out almost by the grain.
So you got about 4 or 5 days left. I'm making you feel bad, right? But hopefully more.
But barges bearing salt for towns like Maywood are frozen into the Illinois River. Elsewhere, Michigan has used 137% more salt this season. Ohio, 206%. In Chicago, streets have had to be cleared 26 times since November 1st. No wonder this wily coyote today preferred Lake Michigan, Michigan Avenue. Now, the weather may be causing another, potentially even more serious shortage, Scott. The Red Cross says blood donations were down 10% in January, with some 770 blood drives canceled in 27 states.
We'll check with you again tomorrow, Dean. Thanks very much. So, where is all of this headed? Chief Meteorologist Eric Fisher of our CBS station WBZ is forecasting for us tonight. Eric?
Hey there, Scott. Good evening, everybody. An impressive storm system underway. As you mentioned in an earlier report, the snow moving up toward Chicago, across the Midwest, and into the plains. Windswept snow at that. Rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour across Indiana and Illinois this evening, and freezing rain into the Ohio Valley. And all this is moving off toward the east. By tomorrow morning around New York City, a wintry mix. Heavy snow coming down in Boston, much of New York State and New England. That will linger into tomorrow afternoon before everything wraps up during the evening. Snow totals, here we are again. It's the winter that keeps on giving. 6 to 12 for many, 3 to 6 on either side. A big swath of Americans will be shoveling out tomorrow, Scott.
Now, this next storm that is coming, what can you tell us about that?
So a lot of chatter going on about a potential storm for this upcoming weekend. That energy, Scott, right now is out across the Pacific. That will cross the country as we head through the weekend. And then by Sunday, it's right offshore. A couple potentials here. One is up the coastline, a significant nor'easter. One is out to sea. Certainly a high ceiling, but Scott, there's a lot of uncertainty here. We're hoping to have a better handle on this by the time we get toward Thursday, but no state of emergency just yet, that's for sure.
Eric Fisher of WBC. Eric, thanks very much. The airlines canceled more than 1,500 flights today. That brings the total for the past 2 days to more than 3,600. Mark Strassman went to the Delta Airlines Operations Center in Atlanta.
We'll just monitor it through here with the tarmac situation.
The man at the center of coordinating and controlling Delta's 4,800 daily flights is Dave Holmes. He leads the 270 employees in this room trying to get ahead of 3 winter storms.
You got to have an airplane, you got to have a flight attendant crew, you got to have a pilot crew. Those are all 3 separate resources that you have to put together. There's always that movement of crews and resources within the hub that we have to manage. So there's a lot of juggling that this room does.
Delta had to cancel 583 flights yesterday due to the week's first storm. The second storm forced Delta to proactively cancel more than 500 flights today and tomorrow.
How much more complicated does dealing with, in effect, 3 storms at once become when just dealing with one storm is often, an educated guess?
It limits your options. So some of those aircraft or crews that we might position elsewhere in the Northeast will position back in the Great Lakes behind the weather. So we're always trying to think ahead to make sure that you don't double hit yourself as an airline when you're planning your resources.
Delta also has a social media center. Representatives track sites like Twitter in 3 languages. They respond to passenger concerns and solve travel problems. Scott, this week, they've been busy.
And as this continues to develop overnight, we'll have more from you tomorrow on CBS This Morning. Mark, thanks very much. We got a report today about Obamacare that was both surprising and widely misunderstood. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said about 2 million Americans are likely to pass up full-time jobs because of the president's health insurance program. Those aren't necessarily jobs being lost. They're also workers choosing to work less. Cheryl Atkinson explains.
The Congressional Budget Office finds most people who leave the workforce will do so by their own choice, like those who retire early because with Obamacare, they no longer have to work to be insured. David Cusano studies health policy at Georgetown University.
For individuals that were continuing to work in jobs that maybe they, they were ready to retire but couldn't because they were paying for health insurance, I think it gives them choice to focus on things in their lives other than work to pay for health care.
The CBO says for some, Obamacare may also reduce the incentive to work. That's because taxes and penalties under the Affordable Care Act hit people harder the more they earn. Subsidies to help pay for health care grow bigger as income falls. And since the government kicks in for the cost of health care, people can earn less but still maintain their standard of living. But the report also says businesses may eliminate full-time jobs next year because they'll have to pay a penalty if they employ 50 or more full-time workers and don't offer insurance. Republican Senator John Cornyn said that's proof Obamacare will hurt the economy.
In addition to people getting canceled policies or sticker shock and finding out that their health care costs didn't go down, they went up, or finding that if you like your doctor, you can't keep them, what we're finding is that these same people may find themselves out of work as a result of the policies of the Affordable Care Act.
The White House today said the CBO's projections all translate into the fact that Obamacare has given American workers more choices. The report also says employment will improve over the next decade, Scott, but just not as much as it would have without the Affordable Care Act.
Cheryl Atkinson in our Washington office. Thank you very much, Cheryl. We told you yesterday about the big drop in stock prices. Well, today investors went shopping for bargains, and that sent the Dow Industrials up 72 points to close at 15,445. Microsoft named a new CEO today. 46-year-old Satya Nadella, a native of India, is a 22-year Microsoft veteran. He's been in charge of the company's newer, faster-growing businesses that deliver software and services over the internet. His challenge now is to reshape a company that dominated the world of desktops but found itself falling behind Apple when the world went mobile. The chief financial officer of Target stores went before Congress today and apologized for the data breach during the holiday shopping season. Hackers stole at least 40 million credit and debit card records. Target, like most American stores, uses technology that is decades old and is easy to hack. Turns out there's a better system, and we asked Elaine Quijano to tell us about it.
There are more than 1 billion credit cards in circulation in the United States, but just a fraction are like these cards being made at the CPI card room in Colorado.
this is a really critical stage. It's called our smart card area.
Steve Montross is the company's CEO. These cards have a computer chip which stores user information. Unlike the magnetic strips on the back of most cards where personal information is permanently stored, the data on the chips is encrypted with codes that change whenever the card is scanned.
Therefore, if fraudsters get a hold of cardholder data, they're not able to duplicate that data authentication that is dynamic and changes for every transaction.
Smart cards are widely used in Europe, Canada, and Latin America. They are barely a blip in the U.S., where almost half of all credit card fraud occurs.
The chip is very different. It's like moving from an 8-track tape to an MP3 player.
Tim Murphy is with MasterCard. The company has teamed with Visa, Discover, American Express, and others to try and make the technology standard in the U.S.
It is costly to do. It costs money for both merchants and for banks to issue the cards and then to upgrade the terminals to take the cards. It's a little bit like thinking about if you wanted to redo all the entrance and exits to the interstate system in the U.S.
So the major credit card companies have decided to force the issue. In October of 2015, businesses that don't accept smart cards and banks that don't issue them will be responsible for any fraudulent charges. But this technology only protects in-store transactions, so criminals could shift their focus online. It happened in England, Scott. After they switched to smart cards, the percentage of fraud committed online climbed from 23% to 65%.
Elaine, thanks very much. Competition among drug dealers has made heroin deadlier than ever. New TV ads are aimed at persuading teens not to light up. And Vladimir Putin shows off his tender side when the CBS